Hi, everyone. Welcome to Harnessing Your Wealth. This is our podcast today, and you probably haven't heard my voice in a while, but my name is Shaun Peterson, and I'm lucky enough to be today's host. I'm also lucky enough to interview one of my longtime friends, my boss, my mentor, someone that's meant a lot to me in my life over the years, Billy Peterson. So, Billy, welcome to your own podcast in a way.
Shaun, thanks again for doing this, and I'm honored to be included, one way or the other. Either side, I'll take it.
Good. Well, today we're talking about something. Billy's always been, since I've known him, and I mean, I've known him since I was a young kid. I've worked with him for 12, 13 years now, but he's always been one to set high goals for himself, and he's always setting the next step, whether it's in his career or in his personal life. And one thing that he has done recently he's written another book. So you wrote your first book how long ago, Billy?
That was 2018. Been a while.
2018, and then you wrote your new book, which is called From the Starting Gate, The Winning Strategies for Wealth, Health, and Happiness. And I got a copy. I might have stole one here, but this is the hardback copy here I found laying around the office. So going back to that, this has been a project you've been working on for how many years now?
So it kind of entered my mind. So I don't know, those of you out there who have ever run a marathon, you'll know what I'm talking about here. Once you finish the marathon, you say, I'll never do that again. I'm done. And then a few months go by, or maybe for some people, maybe it's just a few days, but you start to feel like, I feel better. I'm feeling like I could do that again. Maybe I can improve on some of the things that I did before. If I train a little harder, if I do this a little differently, I can do better. So that's what happened. After I wrote my first book, I took some time because I will be honest, that was an endeavor, and that was something that I had no idea how challenging it was going to be. But this one, I really felt like I was a lot more I needed to say and ways to help people, and just a lot of areas of my life that I have been able to figure out, so to speak, and I wanted to help people do the same. So it was a few months, got it in my mind, kind of planted a seed. But to answer your question, Shaun, how long did I actually grind it out and sit down at the computer or do something that was really work-related on the book? It took me about a year and a half from really getting into it to finishing it.
Yeah, I've been with you on both sides of the coin. When you ran your 100-mile race, I'll never run another race again, and I know you've ran races. And then when you finished your first book, I'm never writing a book again. That was a lot of work, and then here you are with your second book. So congratulations. I know you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it's a great accomplishment. I know we get comments all the time from clients and friends and family about your first book of how awesome they thought it was. With this book, tell us a little bit. Let's kind of get a brief overview of what's in the book and why you wrote the book.
Well, this is From the Starting Gate. It's really a book about behind the scenes look into my life as a jockey, so into horse racing. But it's not really just about horse racing. That's just sprinkled throughout the book, and some different stories that I tell and life lessons that I learned. And there's a lot of very entertaining and interesting stories that I took from my days as a jockey. But it's also written from my perspective as a financial advisor and all that I've learned in the years that I've been doing what I'm doing now. I always wanted to help people. That's kind of maybe a life calling for me, is help people. I learned things a lot of times the hard way, hard knocks. And once I learn something, though, and I find out a better way, and I see other people who are struggling, I want to help them. I want to help them get to the side that I've found, and how to get to the point where you create what it is you're looking for. So that might be success in wealth or financial freedom, or in being healthy, or overcoming some sort of a health condition that you may be having, or just finding really what we consider to be true happiness, or just living the life that you consider to be fulfilling. And there's a lot of things inside of that, the happiness realm, what that looks like to people. And it's not an exact recipe for that. It's just a way that you can look at your life and in the world that you live and what you have, and find reward out of that, find some satisfaction out of that. And also maybe change the old ways of doing things. Maybe look at why you're stuck in a rut or why things are not working out for you and the way you think. And so it's kind of changing some of those old belief systems. And that's what I was able to figure out in a lot of different areas of my life. And I will tell you that once somebody showed me what it took to begin that path or that journey to wealth, then and I took it and I understand what it meant, then I'm able to help other people get there, and I'm also able to share my experiences in the health realm. So just with the book, it's now covering all three pillars of what I consider to be a successful life, and that's wealth, health, and happiness.
That's awesome. Thanks for the background on that. And also you've studied deep and you've had your own experiences in like what you mentioned with the health and happiness realm. Kind of dive into that for us and why you decided to tie, the wealth, the happiness, and the health, all that into one book.
Well, Shaun, you probably don't even know this, but I'll give you the background where that all came from. So for many years, I worked with a client who was from California, very successful client. He owned dozens of IHOP restaurants, and he was in the horse racing industry. He owned horses. And of course, the horse owners were one of my big target markets when I became a financial advisor. Of course, normally owners in that business have some money and have some wealth in order to be able to do that. So I targeted horse owners a lot. And so this gentleman by the name of Rod McPherson, everyone called him Mac, he became one of my clients. Years gone by, and we did a lot of work for him, and he entrusted me with a great, vast amount of his wealth. And we'd talk a lot, and he told me one day that there are three keys to success. And he said the first is health, second is happiness, and the third is wealth. And he said they have to come in that order. If they're not in that order, then none of them matter. So obviously what he was meaning is health is the most important, and then happiness, and then your money is last. And I kind of pondered that for a while. It stuck with me. It wasn't just a phrase that came and went. It stayed with me, and I started to think more about that and maybe how that applied not only to him, but did other people see that the same way? Did they all see it that way? And for me, those three terms just kind of stuck in my mind. And I wrote my book playing off of that theme, but also changing a little bit of the order. And I changed the order because, not for me, the most important, because I don't think wealth is the most important. I wrote it in the order of how I dealt with them in my life and how they came into my life and how I finally figured things out. So early on in my life, wealth became the driving force. I wanted to be successful, and I always thought having money was the definition of being successful. If you had money, bang, you're important. I didn't even understand health. I just took it for granted. I was always pretty healthy, pretty active. Of course, didn't know what I was doing to my body as a jockey, but fortunately was able to get out of that industry without any long-term or sustaining issues, with the starvation diets and wrecks that I had, accidents, number of broken bones and injuries that sometimes I wonder how I came out of there alive. And I write a lot about the stories and the things that occurred. But beyond that, I didn't connect the dots of how health is so interrelated and connected and dependent on our mindset and our emotional state and our beliefs and what we're feeding into our thoughts constantly into our mind all the time. And I had to deal with my own very, very severe health issues for many years. And I always look back now that I'm through that. And believe that it was all necessary for a reason for me to learn that so I can help others. Because not only did I help my family, I helped a lot of close friends. Shaun, I've helped you in some of the issues you've dealt with. But the health issue is, I think we're so lost. We're so lost in the woods, especially in this country, how much of our health care and our freedoms and our choices we give away. And we give away believing that the medical industry is always the answer to everything that bothers us. And so some people, they live at the emergency room. Anything that they come up with, they're running down there for treatment, for pills, of course, prescription pills. Everyone wants an easy answer. And it took me many, many years having to change that belief system, because I grew up with that, by the way. That was how I dealt with everything too. But no one could help me. And I went so long, saw so many specialists and experts considered who had the answers or looked at me from a purely physical standpoint. They never, ever asked me, what might be going on in your mind? What might be your emotional state? What was happening in your life? And after about the 7th year, I finally figured out, based on a new approach that I had been given from my wife, not only providing me the books to start reading and looking at this differently, but then visiting a doctor by the name of Dr. Schechter in California, who had a totally different view of this. And it was totally surprising to me. But it was ultimately the answer for me to rid myself of this chronic pain and move into a life of total pain-free living. And so then I look at the happiness factor and I say, how does this all apply? The health, wealth, happiness. The happiness is a journey. It's never going to be a end goal or end game that you just have it, now it's there. It's something that you learn to find. It's everywhere. And once you have all of those things, they tie together. So the happiness factor, I believe, truly believe, allows you to live in a state of health and to also set your mind to whatever you want. That's why in the happiness section I talk a lot about miracles that are able to manifest just by the way you think. So I hope that everyone will find something in this book that will resonate with them. It's not just about me. This is a book that gives stories, but I share stories so everyone can relate and understand how to apply these things to their own life.
Nice. Thank you for that. Kind of back to the first part of your conversation. I knew Mac. I remember Mac very, very well. He was an awesome dude, and the way he said that to you, I think, makes a lot of sense, because I've sat in many meetings with you, with some of our clients, and they have all the money in the world, but if they don't have their health, that money doesn't matter to them. And they tend to be not very happy either if they don't have that. So I think the wealth, obviously we focus on that here in the office at Peterson Wealth Services. That's a big part of it, but it doesn't mean hardly anything if you don't have your health and happiness to go along with that. I think we see that time and again, and I think that you writing about that in your book is very important, and everyone deals with what you're talking about with their money. Everyone's got money, right? Everyone's got their health they've got to deal with, and everyone's got their own path to happiness. So I know that when people read this, they're going to find something that's meaningful to them, whether it's in all three of those categories or one of them. I think it's going to be a great read for anyone. And I know you're passionate about all those, because we're constantly talking about business and the markets and economic backdrops and all that. You're constantly telling us, like you said, about helping me with some health issues and happiness paths. That's a big part of being around Billy every day. We're hearing it every day, and it's great, and we love it. Let's kind of turn, we've talked about why you wrote the book and what's in the book for everybody to experience. How about some challenges with just actually like how to write a book and how to get into this? I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and especially in this day and age where we have all this technology, all these things available to us, that maybe want to write a book. Talk to us about like how to dive into that and maybe some of the challenges that you overcame or discovered when you went into this book writing process. Because I know you learned a lot from your first, but I bet you learned even more about into your second. So kind of walk us through that if you would.
Well, I'm probably like a lot of people where you have a passing thought to write a book. And so clear back to 2017 or so, before my first one was published, I was thinking, man, I'd really like to write a book because I want to have some credibility in the financial services arena. I want people to know that I'm a professional and I know what I'm talking about. And plus, I can help people. You're early in my career, I didn't understand the lack of knowledge around financial services, or just being smart. Financial literacy is the term I'm trying to say. People lack a lot of knowledge when it comes to managing their investments, or even having any investments, how to keep money, not only make money, but keep it, and how to avoid some of the things that draw from it, like debt or taxes or just silly spending. So I felt like I had a lot to share, and I could provide people with the tools to become very successful millionaires. And that's why I wanted to write that book. But still, having that thought to want to do something and then doing it are two totally separate things. So one year I was at Raymond James conference, a national conference for Raymond James, and I believe it was in Tennessee. And one of the breakout sessions was from a couple guys who started a company to help people write books. And so they're kind of like a ghostwriting company. I think their company is called Scribe. And they were talking about, in that session, they were talking about how to write a book and why to write a book and all those things. And it's kind of reiterated to me why I would want to do it, but I didn't know the how. And I bought their book. They actually had a book on how to write a book.
Of course they did.
Yeah, it was great. And I read it all, and I started getting excited, and I had like a blueprint. Here's what I've got to do here. So I start my manuscript. I reorganize it. I edit it. And then I reach out to possibly an editor. And then I'm going to need somebody to help me with the cover design. I'm going to need somebody to help me with the formatting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so then, you can find people to do all these things. There are services online. I was finding people, I don't even know where they are, but probably India, other countries online through these services.
Going global, Bill.
I was going global. But there was a company that actually provided capability for people to bid on your work. You say, I want a cover design. And then I had like 30 different cover design promotions, or I guess people who wanted to submit their idea to me.
Sure.
And I was able to narrow it down and figure out what I wanted. Anyhow, it was still a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but I self-published it. So I created my own publishing company and published that book on my own, put it on Amazon, a lot of things that I needed help with, but I struggled through and learned it. And of course, had some help around here in the office. Maggie was pretty instrumental too in doing a lot of fine tooth combing, editing.
I remember her first read through.
Yeah.
She went through a whole stack of Post-it notes
Oh
of things that she needed you to look at.
I looked at that and said, Maggie, I couldn't have made that many mistakes in this book. But she had her own viewpoint of everything. Anyway, she was helpful there. Now the second time through, I wrote it, and I wrote my book, reorganized it, and then I reached out to a professional editor, copy editor, to look at everything and tell me what she thought. And of course, she came back with a whole bunch of recommendations, suggestions, reworking chapters, deleting certain chapters. There was a lot of things to change. So it was almost like starting over, but not all the way. It was like backing up almost to the start. And you still had a lot of content, but she wanted me to expand on certain ideas and subtract on other ideas, and then organize the book into the actual sections. Because in the first manuscript, I just wrote it all, and I had it all scattered together. And she said,
kind of vomited all over that Word document.
Everything that came to mind, I was just writing it down. But she said, let's just make this organized. Let's put it into different sections, because some people might only want to read about the money part. Some people might really want to dive into the health section. And so I really put it into the different sections, and then had to have transitions, from one chapter to the next. You can't just stop and start. Yeah, transition the idea into a new thought.
Sure.
So there was quite a bit of that going on. Then it's like, oh, I need to find a publishing company or an agent. How am I going to get this out in the world? You can write a book, but no one's going to buy it. Does that even matter? So I was getting on these publishing companies' websites and submitting my manuscript. I swear I submitted my manuscript to at least 300 or 400 different literary agents.
Wow.
And I'd do like 15, 20 a day. I'd submit it and tell them what it's about and hope and pray that somebody would look at it and say, yeah, this looks like something we want to do.
It's kind of like submitting your resume for a job.
It is.
Got to rewrite same thing 50 times and submit it out there and hope someone picks it up,
so
right?
Competitive. I had no idea how competitive the publishing world was, but very few of them even respond to you. It's such a, who do you know kind of industry. And right. You have to really knock on a lot of doors and get yourself noticed and get in there. But I didn't get any favorable responses out of those several hundred on that, trying to find that literary agent. There's no magic formula. But finally I found a site that offered these types of services through a publishing company by the name of Hay House. And Hay House has authors that resonated with me because I've read a lot of their authors' books, and similar way of thinking in the whole universal aspect of things and health, and they've published a lot of books that I thought were very helpful, self-help books. So I reached out to them. They have this publishing company called Balboa Press, and I wanted to get in with them, and I submitted my manuscript, and they said yes. Now it's a little different because it's not free. They don't put all the money up front, but they don't accept everyone. So I was able to get in with that, and then I've submitted for a competition to Hay House. I submitted my manuscript and a book proposal to them, and many hundreds of authors went through this process and submitted theirs in this competition. And I received honorable mention from them. So I kind of got on the map through Hay House, and that was something that I felt pretty good about. And with Balboa Press, they published it. I have everything out there now. So it's on Amazon, it's at Barnes & Noble, and it's on Balboa Press for purchase, not only the paperback, but the hardback copy. Finding the cover photo is another one. I had to get and scour some photos, and I actually called the photographer who had taken these photos, different racetracks from the starting gate. Because from the starting gate is really what I wanted to use as my title. And I don't know, should I tell you why?
Yes, you should tell us why. Absolutely.
So I always, as a jockey, I always felt like the place of the most serene, peaceful place I could find would be in the starting gate. Now that sounds counterintuitive because you're thinking, holy hell, you're going into starting gate and you're getting ready to bust out of there on a quarter horse going 45 miles an hour. But the place where you get most present in your thoughts is in the starting gate. You go into the gate, everyone's at the same point in time, at the same spot. And it's all about using now your intuition and your reflexes, your subconscious mind, so to speak, at that stage. You cannot consciously think your way through every single thing that might happen in that race as soon as those gates come open. And I wanted to use from the starting gate as the point in time of everyone's dealing with as they go about their daily life. It is a chance to reset and rewire, to be present in your thoughts and not be thinking about what's already happened or what might happen in the future. But the only place we can live is in the now. And I want people to remember that, because if you're in the now and you're in the present, you don't have any problems. You don't have any pain. You don't have any issues. You're just being present with what is, and you're accepting what is. And that's where we need to all stop and get back to. If problems occur, which they will, we have the chance to come right back to the starting gate again and again and again. And so that's what kind of made sense to me as I'm laying out the strategies. Now, sometimes they're in depth, sometimes they're just in generalities of what people need to do in all these areas of their life. But it's just life lessons. It's kind of a backstory of wisdom. It's a code, but it's also just a paint by number. You get to just make your own. You get to build your own. And I'm laying out the path here, but everyone's path's going to be their own unique one. It's not one that's well worn.
Sure. I like that. I've never really thought of the starting gate as like that peaceful, serene place, but looking at your book cover right now, it looks peaceful on there. Be there, but you want to get to the winner's circle, right? You want to be across that finish line first. So hopefully that's where people
are going. I mean, that's what you want. You have your vision of what you want in life, and so that could be the wealth, that could be a healthy lifestyle, living, or just finding happiness. But it's all there if you're willing to set your intention for it. Set your intention for it, and then get out of the way and quit worrying about it. Because worry, as you'll find out in this book, is the killer for all three. It is the secret killer for all three. And people need to get into their head that they don't have a genetic problem per se, or something wrong with them, or they're poor because of their upbringing.
Or they're worried about the market so much it's going to affect their wealth when they shouldn't be.
Worry destroys wealth. It wrecks your health. And it burns a hole right through any chance of having happiness. Worry is the death knell about all three.
Could not agree more with that. You talked a little bit about where we can find your book. So let's kind of go through that again. And then also, like, I know you've been working a lot with Philomena in the office about promoting your book. Maybe tell us some of the strategies that you're using, what's working, and again, where we can find the book. So if anyone else is thinking about writing a book, they maybe have a heads up.
Well, with us, our strategies, by the way, it's just published a couple weeks ago, so it's not like we have this huge campaign underway or anything. But Balboa Press is, again, my publishing company, and they're going to be initiating several different campaigns through social media that people will see that'll be coming out. We're also doing things here in our office, so sending out notifications on our social media, and then to our clients. Mm-hmm. We're having an open house here at the office that coincides with our remodel as well as a book signing. So anyone that's local here to the office wants to come by and get a signed copy of my book can do so. I'm going to be doing several different speaking engagements. I'll be on some shows, some web-based shows that are for authors and for people who are starting to promote their book and what it's about. My book's going to be in several different bookstores, from the Barnes and Noble to a few stores up north, Canadian province, and we'll have opportunities to speak at different trade shows and conventions, conferences, etc. So he'll be going around.
Yeah, we also order, 300 or 400 copies for our financial boot camp, and we give those away for students that want a signed copy. So that'll be coming up in March again, I believe, is what we're doing, where you can send your kids or sign up for that, and you can actually come yourself. I think the material is all relevant for everybody, and you'll be giving that book out there too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we do that. That's one of the few places that we actually give them all away, the books, because of the students who come. Again, that's a give back area where we help the community, help students. We've been doing that for 15 years or more.
Sure.
And so anyway, anyone can buy my book online, paperback, hardback, ebook, and I'm getting ready to begin the audiobook process. And so I'll start that, and I believe that'll be out sometime late July or early August.
You're doing that specifically for me because I prefer audiobooks, right?
Shaun doesn't read a lot, so yeah, he's demanding it. But I'm finding that a lot of people do that. I've had friends who drive a lot in their job, and they just listen to audiobook stuff, or they'll listen to podcasts. So we're getting a lot of people who are joining our podcast that way, and for that reason, the things that we help provide and backgrounds and the guests that we bring on, I think just diverse backgrounds and stuff. But this book is going to deal with a lot of things that people are looking for. I don't think there's ever been a time in history when more people are desperate for answers in these areas of their life. And the way I talk, the way I write is, I think, understandable to most people. They can relate. And I don't just draw on and on and on about boring financial stuff. Again, I try to make it interesting where you want to pick up the book, and when you stop reading it, you're excited to pick back up where you left off.
I think that's the feedback that I got from your first book. Obviously, not a lot of people have read the second one because it just came out, but the feedback I always got from your first book was he made it so simple to understand, and I just wanted to keep reading more and more because I actually felt like I was learning something. And that's good. Good for you for breaking complicated things down into simple layman terms, whether it's in the wealth, health, or happiness realm of those subjects. We're wrapping up here. We're coming up on 35 minutes or so, but what do you hope readers take away from reading, either your first book or this second book from the starting gate? What's your hope for them?
My hope for everybody is that they don't give up hope. I want people to realize that they can be anything. They can do anything. Their life can be whatever they choose it to be, as long as they set that intention and truly believe it. And that's, I think, where we fall short, is we deny ourselves that best possibility because we don't hold ourselves to that. We either give up because we don't have the fortitude to stay with it, the strength of character, or we just assume we're not worthy of whatever those things are that we want. Sometimes we fall into that trap where, I don't want to be wealthy because it's sinful, or rich people are jerks, or, boy, if I had money, then some people wouldn't have money. I just wouldn't feel good about it. Well, that's just a bogus way to think. If you have money, you can do everything you want with the money. You can help people. You can be generous. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're going to change who you are. If you're a generous, kind, giving person, you're going to be the same person when you're rich and when you're wealthy, but you're just going to be able to do more with it. So you can be broke and be kind, or you can be rich and be kind. What's going to be better? And I find that people need to get out of their victim mentalities, start thinking unlimited potential. And that can be spilled over into your health as well, because you don't need to accept what you've been told. I did. I was told I had an incurable disease. So folks, read my book. Understand that I'm not just talking about certain things frivolously or kind of a passing thought about how worry and stress and tensions affect us slightly. They affect us wholly, truly. That's the back cause of almost every single condition that we face. And I don't care if you're talking about migraines or you're talking about cancer. Worry and all the things originate. All these diseases originate in our minds. They're not a genetic, bam, unlucky, I just came down, or families passed down this condition. Science is catching up with this. And they've proven that it's not the DNA or the genetics that pass these. It's your lifestyle. And it's how you've been conditioned to live and to think that's passed down from your parents to you, from grandparents to them to you. It's your thinking that gets you. So you have to change the way you think. You have to be positive, have happiness, have good thoughts instead of the worries. And if you're always thinking, worrying, tension, negative thoughts, your body gets out of balance. And somewhere along the way, something's going to fall apart and it's going to break. And that usually comes in the form of some kind of illness or disease. And the diseases in our country now are exploding by the thousands. In our country, we have something in the ballpark of 10,000 different labeled diseases. In the late 1800s, we had 10. So figure that out, Shaun. Where's the motivation there? You can see
sounds
it.
like dollars
Profit
to me.
motivation.
Yeah.
We're getting trapped by medical industry and we don't even know it. So I hope people realize that there's ways out, there's ways across it. If you just will be willing to think differently and open up your mind to all worlds of possibility. That's my intention. That's my hope.
Well put, Billy, and congratulations on the release of From the Starting Gate. Like Billy mentioned, it's available on Amazon and what was Balboa Press, right?
Right.
You got that, Balboa Press, or call the office. We can help you figure out how to get one bought, and hopefully you could leave Billy a good review once you read the book. And Billy, I just want to say from my perspective, I know you've worked your tail off on this. You've put a lot of thought into it, and proud of the work that you did. And I think everyone will enjoy reading the book. And that's it for today's show. Again, thanks, Billy, for letting me host. I could really get used to this, just so you know. So if you ever need a sub, you just holler, and I'll be happy to do it.
That's why I only do this once in a while, Shaun. You're an animal that wants to get out of the cage, but I don't know. You could do a lot of damage if we let you out too far.
Yeah, don't feed my ego too much. So let's wrap it up there. Thanks again for tuning in to Harnessing Your Wealth. You can find us at petersonws.com, or if you have any additional questions, you can call the office at 801-475-4002. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to Harnessing Your Wealth with Billy Peterson. Before we declare the race official, please click the follow button so you can be notified when new episodes become available. For more information about today's show, please check out the show notes. Visit our website at www.petersonws.com or give us a call at 801-475-4002. Once again, thank you for listening. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Peterson Wealth Services. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.